Housemarque first made their name back in the golden age of gaming with Super Stardust, an updating of arcade classic Asteroids for the Amiga. They've since gone on to become maestros of the arcade twin-stick shooter genre, with the likes of Resogun and Alienation for PS4, but with Nex Machina, their first self-published title, they've clearly set out to make the ultimate twin-stick shooter. Housemarque impressively managed to team up with Eugene Jarvis, the veteran developer who invented the twin-stick shooter genre with arcade classic Robotron 2084 back in 1982. Together, they've managed to produce a shooter that somehow manages to take everything great about the genre and make it feel modern, while still maintaining the sheer arcade purity of the gameplay loop. With little in the way of plots to get in the way, your task is to see off a generic alien invasion over the course of a series of top-down 2D levels, most of which largely fit on a single screen. Although you can focus solely on defeating the waves of enemies to progress, there are also several humans wandering around on each stage who you can rescue for bonus points, much like in Resogun. Defeated enemies also drop upgrades for your primary weapon that will improve its range and spread, and secondary weapons that can be periodically activated, including smart bombs, missiles, lasers, and a short-range melee sword. The lack of tutorial isn't a huge issue as the controls are incredibly simple. The left thumbstick moves you around, while the right stick aims and fires your energy weapon, with the secondary weapon mapped to the right triggers. The left trigger activates a short-range boost, which is essentially a quick jump in whichever direction you're facing, during which you're invincible. This is invaluable for when you're backed into a corner by the unending waves of minions and their bullet hell artillery. The main arcade mode sees you fighting your way through the individual stages, stopping only to take on one of the large and varied bosses at the conclusion of each chapter. The bosses themselves feel like a glorious throwback to the age of R-Type and its scrolling shooter brethren, becoming gradually less intimidating as you learn their movements and firing patterns. Although the difficulty is quite high, particularly for gamers who may not have been around when virtually every game came with a masochistic difficulty curve, the easier skill level comes with a generous supply of lives and infinite continues to help you on your way. You can also play through the entire campaign with a second player in local co-op, which makes things considerably easier. Online multiplayer has sadly been left out, leaving you to the vagaries of Sony's unreliable SharePlay or the PC equivalents should there not be a second player in the immediate vicinity. If you've played any of Housemarque's recent output, you'll know to expect clean and efficient presentation that stays true to the genre's roots without feeling dated. Although the levels are viewed top-down, everything is still rendered in 3D, allowing the perspective to shift around as you move or impressively swoop between stages. It's extremely easy to distinguish between enemies, humans and bullets thanks to the vivid colour coding, and everything that you shoot blows up in a beautiful orgy of voxels. The music similarly feels like a 90s acid house disco, perfectly pairing with the frenetic visuals to push you into the fast-paced arcade flow demanded of the game. While it's true that the arcade mode can be completed pretty quickly, this is tempered by the score attack nature of the game and the challenges provided by the achievements and arena mode. If we're going to really nitpick, a few extra weapon types and upgrades wouldn't have gone amiss, but the lack of online multiplayer is really our biggest gripe with the game, as this really would have helped to maximise the enjoyment that could be wrung out of what's on offer. So, have Housemarque and Eugene Jarvis made the ultimate twin-stick shooter? Quite honestly, yes. Nex Machina is far more than a love letter to the genre, providing a blistering blast of pure arcade action that makes everything released before it feel like a warm-up act. While it may not be for the faint of heart, the excellent set of difficulty options ensure that anyone can jump in and experience why gamers of a certain vintage bang on so much about the old days of gaming. We're giving it a score of 87%, which on our review scale is very good. Nex Machina is not only Housemarque's best game to date, but is also the definitive twin-stick shooter.